In the dream, I'm directing a TV show. One of the actors auditioning approaches the table and sits quietly. Her golden skin tone indicates that she could be of many backgrounds: African, Indigenous, Latinx. But I know this young girl's DNA. She is 53% West African and 47% European. I know this because this strange young girl with the odd, questioning look on her face is my grandmother. The vulnerability in her eyes was never shown to me in real life. I have no recollection of hugs, kisses, cookies. I do not dream of her, and certainly not of her as a young artist beset with a world of possibility. When I wake up from the dream, I get the phone call. Mother, my 110-year-old grandmother, has just died. I guess this would be the moment to say that I cried so hard, but I did not. I could only cry for the space Mother was supposed to occupy as my grandma, the space she never held. She was so cold to me, indifferent. I don't even remember how old I was when my grandmother first pulled away. Young enough so that it didn't really hurt on the surface. But it left something in me. A sense of disconnection from the past, but also something else. A sense that the past haunts me through these dreams and these visions and these inexplicable moments in my work where I find myself writing down my grandmother's history that she never told me. And that makes me think that I'm a lot more like my grandmother than I could ever imagine. Mother's visit to me that night was a sign that my ancestors had stories they wanted me to tell about doors that should be opened and doors that should be shut. My name is Melanie, and this is my journey of finding Mother.
She loved us, all her children. When we were out of sight, we were out of mind. She was very possessive, and she loved them, and she kept us in isolation. We never had a chance to reconcile. I'm Carolyn Murray Page. I'm the mom of Melanie Hunt.
So my name is Toy Newkirk. I am the granddaughter, Irva Newton.
Mother was a warrior. She fought for her family. She stayed with her family, and she brought us together. She loved us, all her children. We all loved her. I loved her too. I still love her.
But there was that strangeness in my mom's family, at least underneath the surface. The lady in the middle is my grandmother, Irva Chester Newton, whom we were forced to call Mother, seemingly on pain of death. And that's me, the little brown pipsqueak on the bottom. When I made this video, I saw it. Something terrified in Mother's eyes. Or was it sadness? My mother said it was because Mother didn't like my mom, her next to oldest daughter.
She was very demanding. She was a demanding woman. She came from something of quality, of class.
My mother's grandmother was named Josephine Myers, and they were from Normandy in France.
She was going to marry a black man, but everyone thought he was white. they told her we would disown you.
And she married him anyway, and they gave all of her inheritance, her land and property, to the Catholic Church in Ellicott City.
There's been so many secrets.
Maybe the secret stemmed from lies. That first lie that said that my great-grandparents were so abominably different from one another, that their marriage was something shameful, disgraceful. Early on in Mother's life, there were people she couldn't mention, relatives she was not allowed to see, and who were not allowed to see her. Maybe taboo is a better word. I remember when I was about 5 at one family Christmas gathering, I was hugging everybody and being my usual outgoing self, when my mother pulls me aside and says, "Melanie, stop hugging your uncles. It makes Mother jealous." Being nice to Kitty's kids in general was a taboo, as was any of the following: calling her grandma, hugs, talking about the past. It was like there was a spell cast over my family, because there was something lingering in the air that we could never mention.
I was never allowed to play. I was never allowed to psychics, mediums, Ouija boards.
She said, don't you ever believe in it. Don't you ever do anything like that.
Of course, my first act of rebellion when I hit college, you guessed it, it wasn't sex, drugs, rock and roll, or hardcore hip hop. It was delving into the numinous world. Cards, stars, the aforementioned psychics. The question was, did these things draw me in, or was there something inside me that drew these things to me? Because doors opened within me. My dreams, visions, glimpses into the past or future became more pronounced, accurate, unsettling. Is that why Mother was afraid of me? Afraid for me? Because she sensed something. I think it had something to do with great-grandmother Josephine's visit to the psychic.
Well, she went to like a psychic, a person who does fiction, a psychic. And she would tell her things to do because my grandfather began to drink. You know, after a while, I began to drink. And said Mother caused to think that her father, caused her mother's death because she was worried about him drinking.
My grandfather, Jeremiah Chester, Mother's dad, wasn't always known for being a drinker. He was often cited in the press for his work in the Republican Party, rallying Black Baltimoreans to navigate the political landscape under the system of Jim Crow. He even became one of 2 Black men to work on an all-white Republican committee. He was also, it seems, targeted for his activist work. It would be another 40-plus years before the Civil Rights Act was passed. Is that what led him to drink, trying so hard to protect his family and his people under a system that would never show him respect? Is that what drove his wife, Josephine, Mother's mom, my great-grandmother, to someone who practiced the occult? The same occult practices that might have altered Mother's world and her personality irreparably.
She said her family was a family of distinction in that time. And she told me about, family gatherings, but they had fun, etc. And then she told me about the deaths.
Everyone died. In the 1920 census, there were 7 people listed in Mother's home on, ironically enough, Eden Street. By 1924, when Mother was 12, everyone but Doris and Mother a young Irva had died. The Eden of Mother's childhood home was a true paradise lost. Mother must have taken some of Eden with her. There were so many triumphs.
The irony that she gave birth to so many brilliant minds is incredible to me.
A son that the first black to go to the academy, another son who got 2 master's degrees, and the first black woman in the generations of people to really graduate from a full college. I was a social worker. Most importantly, I motivated 1,000 social workers to form a social workers union. Instead of getting a good job with the government, which was what I was offered, I went to college. And over those 4 years, seemingly my relationship with my mom became less and less close. She became a little bit more resentful, a little bit more bitter. I just didn't want to be there with her any longer. She didn't seem like the mother that I knew as a child. She saw that I would be the instrument that would start the ball rolling, that everybody else would leave her. And therefore I became an enemy for life. She never forgave me for that.
I believe that Mother had narcissistic qualities. I think Mother, the only way, narcissistic people, the only way that they can lead is through abuse.
Mother believed somewhat in the dark arts. She put a curse on me when she tried to. She called me one day and said, "You will never have any luck. Your husband's gonna leave you, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that."
Was it because my dad was darker skinned, didn't have French relatives, grandparents? Well, we don't know if that was true. And the other thing was, my dad came from a good family, prestigious, really. He was a second lieutenant in the military. We couldn't figure it out. Perhaps that's why she went through the things she did. The ostracization, the pain, the abandonment when my father left.
I got pregnant with Melanie. So I told my husband, he said, "We have too many children now. We had 3. It's a good family." I said, "Well, I'm pregnant." He said, "Well, you can do something about it." And one day he told me, he said, "If you hadn't gotten sick, I was going to leave you anyway." I said, "Well, leave now." He put everything down, got his bags, and left. And left. And never called my mother. Then, when I was 9 months pregnant, we were ready to be evicted. I was big as a house, overdue. And I was around looking for places to live.
We were homeless and no one took us in.
So when the baby was born, he said, "Who should you call?" I said, "Well, call my 2 friends." He didn't know, what family should I call? I said, "I really don't have anybody to call." I said, "My husband doesn't care." I said, "Neither does my family." I said, "So there's no one to call." And he said, "I'm going to call your mother." Called my mother and said, "Your daughter just gave birth to a baby girl." And she said, "Okay, thanks."
Mother would always, she would hug me and hold me and rock me. So I was greeted with this joy.
My mother rejected all my children. Rick said to her, he said, "Oh, Grandma, you don't look like a grandmother." Because she looked so young. She said, "Don't call me grandmother." And he said it hurt him to his heart. So he cried for days.
Were Kitty's kids the only ones singled out for secrets and lies, taboos, and pain?